I like to always talk about advantages I think we shall have because I like to start on a positive note. You know what I mean? And with that, I do feel like our passing attack, once again, should be able to have success against them. We looked at how we matched up against them last time with Trubisky, and you look at the way that George Pickens, or excuse me, GP, because that's how you answer the phone. Yo, it's GP. I said, well, I ain't never had no rookie call my phone and just give me the initials.
Hey, 4 o'clock?
Low key, but he was right on time, bro. But that's how I could
So
tell.
he's serious about GP.
Yeah. Like when I talk to Air Automatic, you can hear him. Hey, man, this is Jalen Warren. Hey, man, this is Kevin. Hey, man, this is such a... They go full name. Hey, man, this is Connor. Hey, Connor, I know who you are, bro. Like, everybody gives the full names. Yo, this is GP. I was like, dang.
Maybe he watches the
All
show.
right. I liked it, man. I liked it.
Didn't feel like he had to give a formal introduction.
Now, respect, big time respect, man. But I do feel like, guys like him and Deontay, who had a ton of success last time going against those guys, I think that they'll be able to replicate that specifically because of the coverages that they play. We broke that down in terms of the cover 1 and the cover 3 that they like to utilize. And I just think that our play action pass is going to once again be one of our bread and butters because of how aggressive those inside linebackers are. Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith. They can obviously read, line of scrimmage and stuff like that, but they are very aggressive. And at times on play action pass, that's where you can have success against them in terms of getting that separation, them up close and that safety deep. Those deep over routes that we've been already seeing and having success with, I think that is there. The other thing, and I alluded to this yesterday when we were talking, Deke, we talked about that slot matchup when the Falcons played the Ravens last week and they were putting Drake London in the slot or at the 3 position, which is the tight end spot, right? That third guy right next to the line of scrimmage. They would put him there. And what they were trying to do in terms of Baltimore matching up with it, they would put Cal Hamilton on him. Cal was doing good, but at the same time, this is a receiver. This is an NFL caliber guy, and he was having success. I feel like we can do similar things with George Pickens, and we already have been starting to flirt with that. The game-winning touchdown pass that we had, George Pickens wasn't lined up outside. He was lined up inside. And that's the thing that we started to do a little bit more with Pickens. We would do it a lot more when we had Claypool here. We would line him up in that slot because it's a natural mismatch. So to me, I think that that's the first area that we will be able to have success and take advantage of that Ravens defense.
Pickens did talk about whenever he was in Georgia, he would do some of the slot stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at some of his games.
Yep.
So it's something that's not foreign to him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to start getting him in there like exclusively, but just a little bit but this wouldn't hurt. Like, and that's maybe why we might need to draft the Jordan Addison.
Think of it like this, man.
On the outside.
No, think of it like this. You want to see AB line up in the slot?
I'm just saying.
Think about it. How many times you see AB line up in that slot? You see everybody lines him in there. It's all about just not being predictable, and it's also about helping your quarterback out as well. It's a lot easier for him hitting this dude in that slot, seeing that in that slot, to win in that slot, versus you being outside, backside with double coverage and all that other stuff. So it's not necessarily a knock that you're putting him in there. It's almost like you're trying to help him and this quarterback out because it's just a lot easier of a throw when you're talking to that slot area versus can you just keep throwing it up deep 30 yards downfield and hope for the best every time? So that's like the thought process with it.
Trust me, I agree.
Yeah.
It's the only receiver I typically throw to in Madden is the guy in the slot. It's
but that's the thought process with it. And that's the part where that's why I also, when I talk Canada and why you'll hear me speak on him in a different light is because I understand that part right there of you don't have to just leave him out there because he's your best receiver or your number one. You put him in the slot. It's not just easier for him, but it's easier on this quarterback. So when we talk about targets, and what do we say? Why does Deontay get more targets? Because he's open right here, right? 5, 7, 10. It's easy to see. It's easy to read. Pickens, why doesn't he get as many targets? He's 30 yards downfield with a defender in his back hip, and we talking about just throw it up. Now, we know he's capable of doing that, but as a quarterback, that's a lot more of a challenging throw. It's a lot more that could go wrong with that than this right here. So Canada, hey, man, why don't we get more targets? Start putting them in there, man. And that's what we did start to see last game. And I do think we will see more of that coming forward. And that's the part for where I'm like, no, that makes perfect sense, man. I love that. And hey, if Baltimore decides to travel with him and stuff like that, well, now it's even better because now you're making them have to over communicate because we've talked about just how challenging it is when you start moving pieces around and you're trying to match this DB here. What does that coverage do now? Or you're guaranteed that they're in man. So even better. So either way, like I said, I definitely feel like that's going to be an advantage for us. The second thing is this, man. Now, granted, they still don't do a ton of it, but I'm going to keep saying it as long as he is at quarterback, man. I feel like, bro, we going to get us a turnover, man. With Huntley at quarterback, whether he's throwing it or even when he runs the ball, he's just loose with it, man. The reads when he's throwing it, I'm like, bro, it's going to happen. We saw him put the ball on the ground last week. Obviously, he was able to get it back. But to me, it's just, he's one of those guys that I do not feel values that rock the way that he needs to value it. And part of that could be because he watched Lamar, how Lamar plays. But Lamar is different. Lamar, you can get away with some of that stuff. Huntley, not so much, man. But he's one of those guys that I feel like we have to force him into a turnover. And I think that we will be able to force him into a turnover. Very similar to what I said last week. The biggest difference was what? We couldn't stop the run. So they stopped having to put that ball in the air. But to me, man, we stopped this run that we were supposed to. He targets Mark Andrews. He's not reading the field. He looks there. And if that's not there, then he's going to try to scramble around and do whatever. We're going to be able to take one of them things when he's putting up to the Mark Andrews. And that's where I feel like we got to make that happen.
Reminds me of Tua a little bit, just throwing up some floaters. Yep. Now, I will say this, Tua might even have worse floaters than Tyler Huntley at this point.
Which is kind of crazy, but very true.
I'm not even messing with you there. But it does. It's just like, how is this ball not picked, man?
Yes.
This is up in the air for a little bit.
Like, I don't get it, bro. I don't. I'm with you, though, man.
Hopefully we go in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the final area that I think we'll have an advantage in is our pass defense. I forgot who brought it up yesterday when we were talking about just likes and dislikes. We was kind of like, yo, their receivers aren't really like that. And one of y'all in the chat was kind of like, man, I think our DBs are going to feast on them dudes. I agree. We talked about their three receivers, man. Demarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins, and Deshaun Jackson. None of that is scary for the guys that we have, in terms of Cam Sutton, in terms of Levi Wallace and company. I think that they're too fundamentally sound. I think that they're too athletic as well. So it's not a scenario where we've come into some of these games and it's like, yo, they got an elite guy over there. We got to count two. I don't think that's a scenario. I think we can sit and do what we need to do coverage wise, but we really have to just gear up to stop this run. And that was part of the reason why last time we played them, we did a lot of 3 safety stuff. We only had Cam Sutton being the only corner out there because we knew that they couldn't throw the ball like that. And I think that we'll take a similar approach. The big thing is we got to match that physicality. We got to stop that run. But I do feel like if it becomes where we can make them have to put that ball in the air, our DBs will definitely have a successful day versus this offense. Now, the way that they can generate success, though, is off a play action pass. And that is also why it is critical we stop the run. Because you think about when Anthony Brown came in for them and hit that pass on the sideline, what was it? It wasn't a drop back. It was play action pass. And why did it work? Because they were rushed for over 200 yards, so everybody in the stadium reacted to it. We have to stop that run so that way we don't overreact to these play action passes and actually can take advantage of these just non-elite talented quarterbacks that they are going to be putting out there, man, in terms of Tyler Huntley. But if we don't stop the run, that play action pass is going to kill us because you overreact to it and their receivers are good enough to just run an over route. They are good enough to run a deep stop. They are good enough to run a deep out. They can do that type of stuff. But it's based off of play action pass. If it's not play action pass and nobody's getting fooled, nah, they not like that over there, man. So, like I said, those are the areas that I think we will have a really good advantage in. Some of the areas that I don't want to say are disadvantages, but I'll just say areas of concern. Number one is the physicality. Because of what we saw 2 weeks ago versus this exact same team, I can't just hang my hat and say, oh, yeah, we definitely going to be the more physical team because we already did. Can't say it because we did not, but I'm hoping for us that we remember what happened 2 weeks ago and we come back and match that from the beginning of this thing and not warm up to it. A lot of those dudes were young. It was their first time in that matchup. They didn't know what it felt like. It's a certain level of intensity. And even with that, we still have some positive stuff going on, but we have to match their physicality. That was the first thing. Second thing, Mark Andrews. Coach Tomlin talked about him before. I don't even know if he talked about him yesterday. He probably did, though. But Mark is one of them dudes. Like I said, man, when they want to throw the ball, especially when it's Tyler Huntley at quarterback, they are looking to Mark Andrews first and foremost. That's reflected in the targets. Mark had 5 to 7 targets a game. Everybody else, 1 to 2 targets. That's just how it goes. They're only throwing it 17 times now, so it ain't a ton of throwing. They want to run that rock. But Mark is definitely one of those guys that is an elite tight end. He can do everything that you need as a tight end. But final thing that I have in terms of just, like I said, concerns or people to not be weary of, but pay attention to. I think you said them earlier, them 2 inside linebackers, baby.
Yeah.
We saw what Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith did last time, man. They accounted for a ton of productivity, double-digit tackles, both had interceptions, sack, and one dude put our quarterback out. If we're being real about it, man. So, yeah, we definitely got to watch those two guys, man, because they are all world. They can play sideline to sideline. They can be physical. They can cover zone, man. And we know that they are big playmakers. So, like I said, you ain't got to fear them, but just make sure we know where they at and don't allow them to have impact in the red zone because that's ultimately where they killed us last time. Yeah, I mean, both of them dudes literally in the red zone. So, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it, though, man.
I feel the same way I did heading into our game against the Ravens a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I would like to establish the run. I don't know how much we're going to get from that just because of how good Ravens' run defense is. So Pickett's going to have to step up. The quarterback's going to have to step up. So, like, Mitch did until he threw the picks. Like, Mitch was making some nice throws down the field. So we're just going to need that from Pickett. Some timely third down conversions, some passes down the field whenever we're not able to run the ball and the Ravens are stuffing us a little bit. So, like, outside of that on offense, I don't really know what else there really is to it because Ravens secondary, you can have your way with them. It's just going to be tough against their run defense. But I want to stay committed to it. I want to stay balanced. And then defense, I mean, we should be fine. There should really be no issues on defense on paper. But if it comes back to the Ravens are just moving us at the line of scrimmage, that front seven is not someone mentioned in the chat, holding the gap integrity, then it's going to be a lot of what we saw a couple weeks ago. And J.K. Dobbins running down the field. We just can't have that, though. We should have a different type of mentality. Maybe not a different type of mentality. It's just we should know what to expect and come in and execute. Like, no excuses this time.
Because in terms of the game plan or the ask, is very simple this week in reality.
It is.
But in terms of the execution, that's where it becomes challenging. Can we go out there and just simply stop this run?
Like you said, they have no receivers. They're having Tyler Huntley throw the ball.
Seriously, yeah.
But they got some decent run. I don't know if Dobbins is going to play. Wasn't he hurt last week?
Yeah, he was hurt. But Gus, because Dobbins played last week, but he wasn't all the way healthy, I thought.
Okay.
Gus just went off, though. That was the thing. They couldn't stop Gus.
It's really that simple.
Yeah.
Stop the run on defense.
And then don't turn the ball over on offense.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we've been able to move the ball.
Think about it. We moved
that's
the ball
a given at
up
this point.
and down the field against this
should be
Ravens
a given.
defense.
It should be a given at this point. We've been able to move the ball up and down the field.
Yep.
We can get it in the red zone area. We can get it to where we're kicking field goals.
That's think about even when we was playing the Eagles. We still can move the ball.
We were.
Think about it.
We saw the signs early in the season. We've just been starting to get better with the points in the second half.
Absolutely. But this is the one where we got to make sure that when we get to that red zone that we're not turning our ball over, man, because that's how they've been staying in these games as well without Lamar. They don't turn it over. They generate turnovers, and they going to run that ball.